Hey everyone, it's me, Rami Marks, your Tangled Yogi out here in Northern California. Welcome to the Songs for Peace Zentangle inspired class. I'm so glad that you've decided to join me today. And I know that it has been a very difficult time to watch what is on television right now and all of the terrible things that are going on in the Middle East and in Ukraine and in other parts of the world as well. And so I decided that I wanted to create a class that would uplift us and bring about our emanating peace out into the world. And that's really what this class is all about. So I hope that as you are creating today, that you are sending love and peace and healing out into the world. So let's talk about the things that we are going to need for class. I'm going to be working with a Micron PN pen. This is a Pigma pen, but the PN is the same thing as this one. And then I also have my Sakura white jelly roll. I have a 10 in my hand, but you can use an 8 as well. I will be working with a graphite pencil and a tortillon. And then I will also be working with the Tangled Yogi Genesis tile. But if you have the Apprentice tile or your favorite sketchbook, all you have to do is make a square that is 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches, and you are good to go. Now, before we get started with our class today, I just wanted to start with a quote from Martin Luther King, and I thought it was so appropriate. And he says, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that." So take that in, and we are going to go ahead and get ourselves centered and ready for class. I hope that you enjoy it. Hey everyone, let's take a moment to get centered here before we start our Zentangle practice today. I'm out on a hike in North Star in Tahoe and came across this beautiful creek and thought it would make a really nice backdrop for our meditation. So just taking a moment to get comfortable in your chair, allow your shoulders to melt away from your ears, let your spine grow comfortably tall, and just take a moment to listen to the sound of the creek. And just following your breath as you inhale and as you exhale. Breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. In through the nose and out through the mouth. And one more time. And just letting yourself be in the present moment, relaxing and letting go. And taking one more deep breath in and let it go with a sigh. And if you've closed your eyes, you can blink the eyes open. And let's wiggle through the fingertips and the toes. And let's get ready to tangle. So we're going to go ahead and begin, and you can see that I've got my graphite pencil in my hand, and I'm going to start by bringing my dots into my corners here. This is the way that we generally begin a Zentangle class, and I'm going to go ahead and start to connect my dots and create a really beautiful little frame for this piece here. And your lines don't have to be perfect, just allow them to be however they come out today. Now, once I have my frame in my piece here, I'm going to go ahead and start to create what we call a string. And the string is just a way of dividing the space so that it's not so intimidating to start to create inside of a blank space. So you can see that I've got, 4 squares here, or a plus sign, however your mind sees it. Now what I'm going to start to do is in the center of my piece, I'm going to create a nice circle. And you can see that I'm just gently going around with my pencil and creating that circle. So that is going to be our string for this piece. So go ahead and create that, and then when we come back, we're going to start to build our star. So I'm going to continue to work with my graphite pencil in here. We're going to do a 6-pointed star here. And what this looks like is I'm going to come to the top and I'm going to do a wide A. So you can see that it's pretty wide right there. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring it to a close to create a triangle. Once I have that, I'm going to turn my piece upside down and I'm going to go again. So a nice wide A here. And then I'll bring that triangle to a close. So you can see that there's a 6-pointed star in the center of our piece here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by picking up my Pigma pen and we're just going to draw the outline of the star. And there you can see I have the outline of the star. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to create an aura that's going to go around the star. And it's going to have soft edges, so not pointed edges, but softer edges. So you can see that I'm kind of rounding at the places where the point of the star is. And you can see that I'm really taking my time with those auras just to make it nice and soft. And there you see I have this really nice star in the center of my piece. Now I can come in with my eraser and take out that string so that I no longer have the string there, it's just the star. So go ahead and do yours, I'm going to do mine, and then when we come back, we're going to start to build. Okay, so I've picked back up my graphite pencil here, and what I'm going to do is in the valley of each of this point of the star, I'm going to start to bring out a line that is about 1 inch long. So you're going to see me come in at a diagonal angle and just create these lines that are about 1 inch long. And then out here, I'm going to let that just be a little bit more defined as well. So you can see that when I zoom in on this, I've got these nice lines that are coming out. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to let these lines start to connect to the star, but you'll notice that I'm not going up to the tip of the star, I'm actually a little bit below, so that when I go around, I'm just creating these little prongs that are going to come around the star. Now once I've got those, I'm going to take a look at them and make sure that they're all about the same. This one feels a little short to me, so I'm just going to make it a little bit longer. And once I have that, I can pick back up my pen and I'm going to start to bring in those prongs. So I'm just working through, coming around, turning the tile, just like so. So that when I come back to center, I have this beautiful star here. So take your time and put those together, and then when we come back, we're going to build the star. So we have this beautiful little star that's right in here, but we're going to let it grow a little bit bigger here. You're going to see me come up to the top of my page and come down a little bit from the top, about a half an inch, and I'm going to make a little dot. I'm going to do the same thing at the bottom. So I'm coming down and making a little dot. So you'll notice that this has the indentation and this has an indentation, and the ones with the prongs do not. Okay? So all I'm going to do is come down from the top and connect to that piece there. And then I'm also going to come down to the bottom and do the same thing. So all I'm doing is creating these little arced shapes that are going to start our flower. Now I'm going to turn my tile, and you're going to see that I'm going to look for this point over here, and I'm going to start to bring it into about here. And I'll go ahead and I'll connect. So you can see what I'm trying to do is create the same size petal. I'm going to come over here, make a little dot, and create. So I've got this one in hand already. I'm going to go to the next one, see where this little dot is. I'm just going to try to carry it in between right here. And coming right in, creating a nice arc. And the final one right here. So I'm just carrying that dot right over, right in between, and creating an arc so that when we come back to center, you can see that I've got a really nice flower here. So I'm going to start to come into the piece with my my Prisma or my Pigma pen here, and I'm going to go ahead and start to connect with my black pen, and you can see that I'm arcing those lines, really trying to make them feel soft. Coming down and in and connecting, down and in, connecting, connecting, and last one right here. So that when we come back to center, we have this beautiful star right in the center. So go ahead and finish up yours, and then when we come back, we're going to start to add our first tangle into the piece. So our first tangle is going to be a tangle that is part of Inktober. This year we are participating in Inktober tangles, which is really fun. And so if you want to check that out, Inktober Tangles 2023 is a really fun challenge, and you can learn some really fun new tangles that are out there. And so we're going to do a tangle called aath. And aath looks like this. It is an A with an aura on each side of it. And then in the center of aath, you have these other A's that are coming down into it. So it goes a little something like this and like this. So you have these two little A's right there. And then we do another aura right in here. And then a triangle with another aura, and that is aath. And it's such a pretty tangle. And so we're going to incorporate it into our piece here. And by the way, the person that created aath, her name is Mar Patricio, and I just wanted to give a shout out to her and say thank you for the tangle. So let's go ahead and start by working inside of our star here that we have. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the midpoint of the petal here, and I'm just going to drop down and drop down. And you can see that these have a little bit of an arc to them. I'm going to do an aura that comes down on either side. And then I'm going to go ahead and make a triangle with a nice aura over the top of it. And then I'm going to go ahead and continue to aura around the outside edge. So you're just going to see me come in and do a couple more auras right over here. And I'll do a couple more auras right over here. And I'm going to come into the center of the piece and I'm going to pull my ink into the center of the piece. Now, for those of you who are new to Zentangle, just think about tickling the page with your pen. The lighter you go on that pen, the more the ink is going to flow. Okay? So I'm just going to turn the tile and I'm going to do it all over again. So I'm going to come to the midpoint of the petal here and I'm going to let it drop down and touch the tip of the star in the center. And then I'm going to do an aura on each side. And then I'll do a little bit of a triangle in there with another aura. And then we're going to go ahead and continue to aura. And continue to aura. And then we'll pull our ink into the center of the piece. Let's do it again together. So you can see that I'm coming to the halfway point, coming down and in, aura, aura, and then a nice triangle with an aura. Go ahead and arc, and an arc over here, and then pooling your ink into the center. So I'm going to go all the way around mine and do just the same thing. You go ahead and do yours, and then when we come back, we're going to start to add in a little bit more to the piece. Take your time, and I hope you enjoy it. So now that we have this beautiful pattern that's already started in here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a little bit of an aura around this beautiful little star here. So you're going to see me start to work my way around, and I have my graphite pencil in my hand here for this. And for me, what I've noticed is when I go slow, my aura lines are much more soft and smooth. If I'm going quickly, my aura lines have a tendency to be a little bit more jagged and a little bit off. So really just take your time with this and let yourself enjoy what you're doing. You can see that I'm just gently working my way around. And then once I have that, I can go back in with my pen and start to ink those in. So I'm just going nice and slow here and taking my time. I'm turning the tile to make it work for your hand here. And you can see now I've got this really nice aura for the star. So take a moment and finish up yours, and then when we come back, we're going to start to bring our peace doves into the piece. So many of you might know that early on last year, I did a class that was for peace for Ukraine, and I'm going to do a dove that I used from that class, and it's a really easy way to do a dove. And basically it looks like this. So we're going to come in and we're going to do a U-like shape that looks a little something like that. Now, once you have your U-like shape, you're going to go up a little bit more on one side and create the head of the dove here. And then once you have that, you're going to make what looks like a leaf-like shape. And this leaf-like shape is going to come down a little bit. You can see that it almost has a diagonal relationship here, okay? And then it's going to come back and out, and you're going to see me just do a little tail. Now once I have that, I'm going to come in and I'm going to do a little eye for my dove and a little beak. And then for his wing, I'm going to come in and I'm going to do some little jagged movements in his wing to make it look like a wing. So it's a really easy way to draw a dove. So that when we come back to our piece here, you're going to see me start to bring in doves into these little indentations that I have. So let's go ahead and zoom in on this a little bit. And you're going to see me just do a very soft, gentle U, and I'm going to pick up my pencil as I go across and let it come out the other side. So I'm not continuing the line, I'm kind of lifting it up. I'm going to let this come up towards the little frame that we have here, and I'm going to do that little part of his head, and then I'm going to go ahead and make the leaf-like shape, and then I'm going to go ahead and come out and do a little zigzag and connect. Now once I have that, I can go ahead and I can add his little beak and his eye, and then if you want to just give a little ruffle to his feather, you can give a little ruffle to his feather. And that's how I'm going to handle this piece. So I'm going to go around, and you can see that things are a little bit tighter in here, but it will work out. So I'm just going to come in, pick up my pen, go over to the other side, or my pencil. I'm going to create that little arc for his head, and then I'm going to go ahead and create the leaf-like shape, and then coming out and over and connecting. Now I'm going to give the eye and a little bit of his beak, and then I'll go again, and if you want to give a little ruffle, you can give a little ruffle. Same thing right here. Just coming in, creating that U-like shape, and being mindful that you want to keep the doves about the same size here. Coming up and out, and then over, create your little zigzag, and then the eye and his beak. A little bit of a ruffle. So you get the idea here. So I'm going to go all the way around and I'm going to do mine. You go ahead and do yours. So I'm going to come in now with my pen and start to ink in my birds here. So you're going to see me just start the way that I did with a little bit of an arc. And then I'm going to come up and over and ink in his little wing there. And then his tail will come in as well, and a little dot, and his beak. So you're just going to see me start to go all the way around and do just that with each and every one of these doves, and maybe sending thoughts of peace to those who are in need of it today. Coming in. You can see that I'm just bringing those in. His eye and his little beak. So you can see that I've done half. I'm going to go ahead and ink in the other side. So now each of our doves is going to be in need of a little olive branch to have in his mouth. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little bit of an arc that looks like a little C. And I'm just going to bring this in nice and close so that you can really get a good idea of what I'm doing. So I'm just going to do a little C curve here that's going to go through where his beak is. And then at the top I'm going to do a little bit of a flex-like shape, and then another one, and then another one. And that's how they're going to hold their little olive branches. So each one will get a little C, and then they'll get the little flecks, just like so. Super fun, super easy. Just really take your time with it. Just working my way through. And you can do yours as well. And so you can see I've done these, and I'm going to carry on and do the ones on the other side. You go ahead and do yours. Now, many of you have heard me talk about interrupted lines in some of my other videos, and so what we're going to do for our border today is an interrupted line. And so I'm going to come into my corners and do a really nice kind of solid line that goes into the corner, and then you're going to see me just kind of do these little dashes, and they'll kind of intersect a little bit as to where the birds are, and that kind of gives this a little bit of movement and motion. And so I'm just starting to make my way around and interrupt the line a little bit, coming through a couple of little dots, and just work my way around the piece with these really fun interrupted lines. And you can see that I'm just kind of putting in some dots near where our little doves are. And you can see what that does is it just gives it a nice border without it having to be overly solid. So go ahead and finish up yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to start in with some color. So I'm going to start with 3 colors to work with the middle here. I'm going to work with the Parma Violet, which is PC1008, and then I'm also going to be working with Violet, which is PC932, and then I'm also going to work with the Magenta PC930. And so if you don't have the same exact colors as me, you can always just pick a couple of purples and a wine colored red. That's really what I'm looking for here. So I'm going to start by bringing in that lightest color first to the piece, and many of you know that I always start with light, medium, and dark when I'm working on something. So I'm going to go ahead and start just working on the side of the pencil and creating a soft mist of purple right in the center of the piece here. Just giving it a really soft feeling, almost like a mist or a fog, if you will. Now, once I've had an opportunity to get some of that purple in there, and I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this a little bit, I'm going to pick up some of that darker purple. This is the violet that I have in my hand here, and I'm just going to start to bring in a really soft dusting of that violet. Now that violet is really, really heavily pigmented, so I really don't need to press very hard in order to get it to give me what I'm looking for. So I'm just coming in and dusting that in. And once I have that, I'm going to come in with a little bit of that magenta, and I'm going to let that magenta just kind of dust right into those edges of the violet, creating this really soft shadow. And then I'll come back in with a little bit of that Parma violet and just start to kind of dust that in a little bit. Taking my time. Once I've got that the way that I want it, I'm going to come in with some white. And I'm going to use this as a blender here. And you're going to see me start from the light all the way back. So I'm just coming in and getting that nice soft white, just giving it a nice blend. And then I'm going to start to dip into that really beautiful magenta. And start to give that a little bit of a blur out. And then I'll dip back into the violet. Now I'm going to come back in with a little bit more of that violet and give this a little bit more of a shadow. Getting that right in there, nice and soft. And then I'll come in with just a little hint of yellow into this one area right in here. So yellow, this is the yellowed orange PC1002, and I'm just going to give a little glimmer of that yellow right over here. Just to give it a little bit of shimmer. Now, I love seeing these colors kind of meld into each other. It's just a really beautiful kind of gemstone kind of feel, and we're starting to go into the season of really beautiful gemstone colors. So I'm just kind of blurring that in with some of the white just to give it a little bit of softness. So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to start to add a little bit more color to the piece. So I've picked up two of my favorite colors in the Prismacolor set. This is the Parrot Green, which is PC1006, and then I also have in my hand the Peacock Green, which is PC907. Really what I'm looking for is a light green and a dark green, and kind of a tealish green if you can. If you don't have those colors, just pick a light green and a dark green and you should be just fine. I'm going to start out with the lighter green first, and I'm going to give just a really soft dusting into the area where we have these little prongs. And so I'm just kind of dusting this in, and I'm going to let it kind of fill the space. And once I have that, I'm going to start to create a shadow that's right around the star. And it's going to give it just a little bit of depth. So I've picked up the darker green now, and I'm just starting to dip into these little areas where we've got the star. I'm just going to give that a little bit of a push here. And then once I have that, I'm going to come back in with that lighter green, and I'm just going to blur out the line of demarcation in here to give this a really soft blend. I'll come in with a little bit of white, and I'll start to dance that white down that little prong. And you can see that that gives us a really soft, almost stained glass kind of feeling. And if you feel like you've lost a little bit of that darker green, you can always come in and do a little bit more of a heavier push with it. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to do mine, and then when we come back, we're going to carry that color. So I'm going to take that very same color that we just used for the green, and we're going to start to carry it outward. And this color is going to go into the tips of the petals. So I'm going to come in right over here and start to work with that lighter green, and just start to dip that lighter green right around aath here. Just getting that right in there. And once I have that, I'm going to take that darker green and I'm going to create a little bit of a shadow that's going to come in right around the tip of the petal in here. I'm just coming in and dusting that in. And once I have it the way that I want it here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to blur out that line of demarcation. You can see where the dark green is meeting the light green. I've just picked up my light green and I'm doing little circles now. And then I'm going to come in with a little bit of that white and I'm going to blur out any of the edges that I have. And this is going to bring a really nice vivid look into that petal. So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to work on mine throughout the piece, and then when we come back we're going to start to carry a little bit more color. So I'm loving the way that this is starting to turn out here. I'm going to pick back up that purple combination that we had in the center here, the light purple and the dark purple. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into these areas right in here in aath, and I'm just going to start to dust in with a little bit of my light Parma violet. This is the lighter color that I'm working with, and I'm just going to dust it down, and you'll notice that I'm leaving a little streak of light going through the center of that piece here. You can see that it's just emanating a little bit of light in there. And then I'm going to come in with that nice violet and start to bring a little bit of darkness right along the edges in here and over in here. Just getting a really nice feel for this. And then I'll pick up a little bit of my white and I'll start to bring in a little bit of a blur to those colors. Really get them to blend into each other. And you can see that that brings a really dramatic sheen into here. So I'm going to do that throughout the whole piece. You go ahead and do yours and I'll finish up mine. So I'm going to pick up another set of colors here. I've got two blues in my hand. I've got the non-photo blue, which is PC 919, which is like a sky blue color. And then I also have in my hand the Copenhagen blue, which is a PC 906, and this is like a navy blue color. Now you can see that I'm pretty well sharpened up with that lighter blue, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to bring it around the doves here. So I'm going to start to work on the side of the pencil and just lightly start to dust in those corners here. You can see that I'm just getting a soft mist of color and just dancing it into those little areas where the little birds are. And I'm just going to bring it in around the top of his head and around the area where his olive branch is. And I'm just going to do one corner for the sake of keeping the video as short as I can. I'm going to pick up that darker blue. This is the Copenhagen blue. And you're going to see me start to dust around the edge of where the star is, just to give this a little bit of a shadow. And then I'm also going to go right where the edge of the frame is and just start to bring in a little bit of intensity there. Now you'll notice that I'm not pressing heavy on that pencil. I'm just starting to get a nice shadow. Now I can come back in right into the corner areas and start to give that a little bit of pressure, and the same thing over here. I'm going to come back in with a little bit of that white, and I'm going to start to work just in the lightest areas first, so you can see that I'm just kind of blurring out that non-photo blue, and then I'm going to start to drag back in a little bit of that really beautiful Copenhagen blue, almost as if it was just a little bit of a mist of that darker color kind of creeping back in. So you can see that that brings a lot of drama into that area and just gives it a really nice holding for that dove. So I'm going to go into all of my corners and do the exact same thing that I just did, really just bringing a nice framing around that beautiful star and around that beautiful dove, because you'll notice that that dove is now starting to pop off the page just a little bit. So you can see that I've had a chance to go all the way around with the blues. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit of that light green that I had in here. This is that really pretty parrot green, PC1006, and I'm just going to add a slight dusting here and there of a little bit of that green into the background to give this almost a watercolor feel around those doves. So you can see that I'm just kind of turning the piece and adding a little splash in and around those outside areas just to give it a little bit of interest. Turning the tile and just kind of dashing little bits into it. And coming around. And then if you want to, you can pick back up your white pencil and add a little bit of that softness to it just by coming in and doing little circles right over the top. And you'll notice that that just brings a really nice piece of blending into it. It gives it a really nice watercolor feel. So I'm going to play with mine. You have a go with yours. And then when we come back, we're going to add some wallpaper into the piece. So I'm going to pick back up a little bit of that Copenhagen blue. This is the darker blue that we were working with earlier. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to zoom in on this little spot right over here. You can see that the Copenhagen blue is really nice and sharpened here. And I'm going to do a little bit of wallpaper. Wallpaper just means I'm going to tangle with the color that I've been coloring with. And many of you know that I love to put prongs in as as wallpaper. So I'm just going to start by doing some really nice large prongs. And I really love to take my time with prongs because prongs will give you away. If you're going really fast with it, it just ends up looking like you weren't taking care. And so I'm going to just come in and start to add in some smaller prongs right next to it, and then maybe a medium prongs. And you can see that I'm just working that in around the piece and just taking my time with it. And what I love about wallpaper is that it adds such a nice texture without overdoing it on the piece. Coming in over here. And just working my way through. And you can see that when I just zoom in on that, or rather zoom out, you can see that that adds a really nice texture to the piece. So go ahead and start to add in your wallpaper, and then when we come back, we're going to start to work with graphite, and we're also going to be working with some yellows and some oranges. So I'm really loving the way that this is starting to fill in, and I hope that you are too. I'm going to pick back up my pen here, and what we're going to do is we're actually going to add a little bit more to this piece. And we have these beautiful doves, and I'm going to add a little bit of henna drum into these doves. Henna drum is one of my favorite tangles, and I'm going to go ahead and do a quick demo for you. For some of you, henna drum is not something that you might know, but some of you may really know it very, very well. So this is henna drum, and henna drum is just an arc with an aura, and then it has a little antennae with a little wavy line going over the top of it. And so you can do as many or as little as you like. And it creates this lovely, almost sunflower-like shape. And that is henna drum. So let's go ahead and come into our little doves here, and I'm going to do just a small arc down at the bottom with an aura, and then I'll come up and add my little antennae here, a little wave coming up and over, and a little wave up and over, and a little wave, just to give our doves a little bit of something extra. So I'm just going to come over here and do the same. And I'm just being mindful to not run into the actual lines of the dove itself. And you can see that it adds just a little bit of fun into the dove. So you can go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine. So I've gone and picked up a little bit of yellow and a little bit of orange here. So I have that yellowed orange that I started with a little bit earlier, which is the PC1002. And I also have in my hand the cadmium orange, which is PC118. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus in on our little doves here, and I'm going to start to bring in a little bit of that yellow first, just nice and soft, into the petals, and then I'm going to come in with a little bit of that orange right around the base here and give this a little bit of a pop. And once I have that, I'm going to pick up a little bit of that white and give it a little bit of a blur. So right where the orange is meeting the yellow, I'm just coming in and giving it a blur. And you can see that that really gives that a nice softness. So I'm going to go all the way around and do just that. You go ahead and do yours. So I'm going to take that same bit of orange that we used just a minute ago, and I'm going to bring it into the beak of the dove, just to give a little bit of definition to his face here. You can see that I'm just turning and dropping just a little bit of that orange right into where his beak is, or her beak, depending. And then once I have that, I'm also going to pick back up my black pen, and I'm going to just come in and do just a little crescent moon inside of my henna drum there, and I'm going to pool my ink into the center of that flower just to give it a little bit of definition. So you're going to see me go around and add that as well. So have some fun with this, play, enjoy what you're doing, and then when we come back, we're going to do some graphite work. So I've picked up a little bit of my graphite here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into these valleys around the star, and I'm just going to start to dust in a little bit of that graphite into those little valleys there. Now you'll see me pick up a little bit of a blending tool. That's a blending stump, or in Zentangle we call it a tortillon. And you can see that I'm just doing a soft mist coming out from the center of that star. Now I'm going to leave the tips of the star nice and light, almost as if they are just light points in the piece. So you can see that I'm just going to do a little dusting into those valleys, and then I'll send some of that mist outward. And if you don't have one of these blending stumps, you can get them fairly cheaply at any of your favorite art stores. But you know what also works well is a good old-fashioned Q-tip. Q-tips are great for blending. I use them all the time when I've destroyed my tortillons. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to add that shading into all of my valleys. So I'm going to add just a little bit of a blush of pink right to the doves that we have in here, just to give them a little bit of pop. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this dove right here. And I'm just going to add a blush of that magenta that we used earlier. This is the PC930. And you're going to see me just do a light dusting of that magenta right at the bottom of where my dove is here. And you know, it's not uncommon to see pink in doves, especially when people are using paint and whatnot. So using a little bit of magenta and then coming in with a little bit of that white to kind of move it around is a really nice touch, I think, just to give this some interest. So I'm just going to come in and give it a little bit of that white, almost as if it's like a blush of color, and you can see that that really does give it a little bit of interest. So I'm going to go all the way around and use a little bit of that magenta and then a little bit of the white. So I've had a chance to go around with that, and I'm finally going to pick up my pen again, and I'm going to come into the area where the olive leaf or olive branch is, and I'm just going to go ahead and puddle in that olive branch with a little bit of my ink, just to get a little bit of that same graphic quality on the outside as there is on the inside of this piece. So I'm just carrying that black to the outside edges, and you can see that just by doing that it does draw your eye to the outer edges of the piece. So I'm just working my way around. And then once I've had a chance to go all the way around with this, I am going to pick up my white highlighting pen. Now I like to use the Mizu Love, but you could also use the Sakura Jelly Roll, whatever is, you know, speaking to you. You can grab that. I'm going to pick up my Mizu Love here, and I'm going to start to add a nice highlight into the center of the piece. So I'm just going to turn this around here. And I'm going to come in on the side where we have this nice shadow, and we'll see if my pen is going to cooperate here. And I'm just bringing in a little bit of lightness. I can see that my pen is not wanting to cooperate, so I'm going to actually pick up a jelly roll. You know, some pens just don't want to cooperate, and we just do what we can with what we've got. So I'm just coming in and giving that a little bit of a sheen or a little bit of a highlight there. And then you'll see me give it a couple of dots here and a couple of dots there. Now you can also come in and add some dots into the black pieces that we have here. So you can see that I'm just going to go around and add some dots into the petals here. And that gives it a really nice kind of graphic feel as well. And if you find that your little dots inside of your henna drum got lost, you can always come in and add a little bit more into that as well. If you wanted to come in and add some white into the valleys of where your star is, you could do that and play with it that way. There's so many different ways to add a little bit of interest into this piece. It's such a fun little piece. And then I think I probably will add a little dot right up at the top in the points of the star itself. So go ahead, have some fun, play, and I'll see you in a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and put my chop in right down here in this corner. And I love to hide my chop in my pieces. It just kind of lets me know that I've finished a piece and I'm ready to let it go. So as we come to a close here, I wanted to say thank you for participating in this class, and I hope you'll post your work on social media and share what you created here. I wanted to end with a quote, and this is by Eddie Vedder, and I thought it was very apropos, and I thought you might enjoy it. And he says, "If you're anti-war, it doesn't mean that you're pro one side or the other in a conflict. However, it does make you pro many things. Pro peace, pro human, pro evolution. It makes you pro communication, pro diplomacy, pro love, pro understanding, and finally pro forgiveness, which will be needed so much in the next few and many years to come." So that's it for me. I'm Rami Marks, your Tangled Yogi. Thanks for joining me today. I really do appreciate it. Stay safe. Bye for now.